Good morning, Year 5. Okay, so like I said yesterday, we are moving on to have a look at a completely different area of maths for the next couple of weeks, which will, as confirmed last night, be the last 2 weeks, fingers crossed, of home learning. And we'll see you all back on the 8th of March, which is great news. So until then, we're going to be looking at angles, okay? And these are some of the things you're going to have to think about as we're doing it. Now, angles, not angels, okay? Be careful about your spelling. See this an awful lot, okay? L before the E. Angles. What am I talking about, okay? What is an angle? So, an angle is a measure of a turn, and it's measured in degrees. Okay, and this is the symbol that we can use to show degrees. So, what an angle measures is the distance, okay, from here into here. So the amount of turn in there. So we're measuring this space in here, this turn in here. Okay. So there are 6 main types of angle that we need to know about really. So 3 of them are an exact angle when it's an exact amount of degrees, we give it a name, and 3 of them are groups. Okay. Do you know what any of them are? Have a think. Just think to yourself. Do you know any of those angles? So, what I want you to do today, the first part of this is just writing definitions, okay? I've got all the definitions here, but you need to make a note of this. It's going to be really important for you to come back to. It's really important that you understand these key names and groups of different angles, okay? So that's really, really important. So for each of them, I want you to write the definition and draw a diagram, and it needs to be neat. Okay, so I am expecting to see a really neat, well presented piece of work in your maths book or on some paper to send in. So the first set of angles, okay, are acute angles. So they are angles that are less than 90 degrees. So anything from 0 to 90 degrees or 0 to 89 degrees, okay, we call an acute angle, okay? So an acute angle is anything that's less than 90 degrees. So this is an example of an acute angle, okay? So there's your definition. There's a diagram that you could draw. Yours might look slightly different, but it needs to be less than 90 degrees. Okay, so get that recorded. Now, an angle that's exactly 90 degrees, we call a right angle. Okay, and that is a quarter of a turn. Okay, so if we talked about a full turn, we'd have a quarter of that turn is a right angle. So it's 90 degrees. And what is really important is this little squaring off of an angle here. If you ever see, okay, an angle squared off like this, you know that that is an exact right angle. Okay, so it's going to be 90 degrees. So any angle that looks like this, okay, is a right angle and it's 90 degrees. So again, there's your definition. There's a diagram for you to put in. Now, moving on, obtuse angles. Okay, obtuse angles are any of the angles that are between 90 and 180 degrees. Okay, so anything between 90, so bigger than a right angle, okay, but smaller than 180 degrees. So any of those are obtuse angles. And again, we've got a specific name for 180 degrees, okay, and that's a straight line. So a straight line is exactly 180 degrees, okay, so if we measured all across here 180 degrees, and that becomes really clear if we add in, okay, a straight line here. We have got two, haven't we, two right angles, okay, two right angles there. Okay, 90 add 90 is 180, so all the way across 180 degrees for a straight line. Okay, so think carefully about those types of angle. Now, anything bigger than 180. So between 180 and 360, they are reflex angles. So all of this angle around here, okay, if we're measuring an angle that is bigger than 180, but less than 360, we're going to call those reflex angles, okay? And the final one, okay, is a full turn. So if we have got our center point here, okay, if we were measuring the angle all the way round from here, all the way round and back to there, okay, a full turn is exactly 360 degrees, okay? And you might have heard that being used for someone doing a 360, either skateboarding or in gymnastics or trampolining or on a scooter or a bike. Okay, if you do a full turn, okay, you do a 360. So a full turn, it's 360 degrees. So it's really important that you get those definitions in for each of those. Okay, and that's just a reminder. Okay, so an acute angle is less than 90 degrees. So any angle that's less than 90 degrees, exactly 90 degrees is what we call a right angle, and we often see it labelled like that. An obtuse angle is anything that's between 90 degrees and 180 degrees. 180 degrees is a straight line. Bigger than 180 but less than 360 is a reflex angle. And a full turn, okay, is exactly 360. So really important we can understand those. Now what I want you to do today is I've got a number of angles either drawn, okay, or written. And what I want you to do is to sort those into a table. So there are some acute angles in here. There are some right angles in here. There are some obtuse angles in here. And there are some reflex angles in here. Okay, there are no straight lines. There are no full turns in there. Now, the bit that you're going to be measuring is the bit that's marked with this line. Okay. So that bit there. So this one here, you're measuring the angle all the way around the outside, okay? You don't need to worry about this little piece in here. We're not measuring that, okay? You're measuring that piece, that angle around the outside, okay? So we're looking at that. Is that greater than 180? Yes, it is. Okay, so that one I would put into reflex. So I might just write the number 17. Okay, so number 17 is in here. I might want to draw it out so I can see roughly what it looks like. That's up to you. Okay, so you're going to draw this table, okay, or you're going to have this table, and you're then going to um, fill these in into the correct box. So number one, where does it go? Okay, is it acute? Is it a right angle? Is it obtuse? Or is it reflex? And I want you to think really carefully about those. Go back to the definitions, have a look at the examples. Okay, where do each of them fit? And I'll leave it on here so you can pause it and write those in your table. So we will come back over this and we'll look over and recap this tomorrow in our live lesson. Okay, but a really brief introduction to angles and the different terminology, the different language you're going to need to describe and work with the angles. So really well done and look forward to seeing it on Class Dojo.